Go inside the Crimson Tide with your hosts Rodney Orr and Gary Harris, keeping you informed on everything Alabama. Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports.
Good evening. Welcome to Tider Insider TV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Thank you to Don Staley and his entire crew. They do a fantastic job. Alongside Rodney Orr, I'm Stu McCann, filling in for Gary Harris. He won't be completely empty from the show. We will have a score prediction. He was thinking ahead, planning ahead. We wish Gary the best health and recovery. He is dealing with a bout of COVID-19, but he will be with us later in the show with a score prediction. But plenty to go through before that. For the 7th time in 8 years, Alabama Crimson Tide is playing a college football playoff semifinal, and this time they're going against the AAC champion Cincinnati Bearcats. Alabama arrived in Dallas over the weekend, Sunday, the day after Christmas, for the Cotton Bowl. The game is Friday at 2:30. The Crimson Tide have become pretty comfortable at AT&T Stadium. Since 2009, Alabama has played 5 games in Jerry World, and they've won every single one, 2 of those being college football playoff games. The last one, last season, against Notre Dame, it was technically the Rose Bowl, but it was played in Arlington due to COVID-19 protocols. But now, Alabama's going to be tasked with not only beating the last unbeaten team in college football, the Cincinnati Bearcats, who are 13-0, but they're also going to have to do this without some key pieces, Chris Allen, and possibly maybe even a little bit more. We'll get more into that. But as we get into the soundbite, because we're going to hear from Will Anderson in just a second, the linebacker, no matter all the things that we hear about Alabama so far, Will Anderson Jr. says they're still the underdog in this.
To me, I still feel like we're the underdog in this game. I mean, you know, all year we have been disrespected. I'm pretty sure we're still probably getting disrespected out there. But right now, we're not really worried about the external factors right now. We just have to worry about what's going on inside the facility and the practice field and all the meetings and stuff like that. And I think that's our biggest concern right now, making sure that we're ready and prepared for this game.
I welcome in Rodney right now. Now, Rodney, Will Anderson said that being overlooked, being an underdog, it's all positive energy. It's probably just something that they like to be the underdog. They like to feel overlooked. They like to think they're playing for something to prove themselves.
Well, I think a lot of people have doubted this Alabama team. I mean, throughout the season, again, we know they've had inconsistencies. They know they haven't played extremely well. They hear that they're not as good as some of the Alabama teams in the past, but yet here we are. Mm-hmm. They head into the playoffs. They're the #1 ranked team once again. So do I think this Alabama team certainly has a little bit of a chip on its shoulder in terms of wanting to prove something, wanting to prove that they're still Alabama? Yeah, I do. Even though the win over Georgia was fantastic, I do think there's still a lot of people that say, hey, will Alabama bring its A game on Friday when they play Cincinnati?
Do you think we're going to see the Alabama team that we saw earlier this month in the SEC championship game, considering the fact every narrative going into that game was Georgia, the favored by a touchdown? Now Alabama is the favorite again. We're back to talking about Alabama being the one that always is here, always belongs here. It almost feels like they really got a good showing based on the fact that Georgia was the team everyone was talking about.
Well, I think it certainly served as a tremendous amount of a motivation for Alabama going into that game. Basically, people said Alabama did not even have a chance. They were writing Alabama off. So I think that played really well for Alabama. Now, as you head into this one, there's a lot of people that doubt Cincinnati. So obviously they have that in their favor. But you mentioned it. Alabama's experience in these games, even though you've got a lot of new players on the offensive side of the ball, you really can't simulate that in terms of you can't create it. Alabama has that experience, the big game experience, the game against Georgia just a few weeks ago. So I think, again, Cincinnati coming into the game has a little bit of an edge in terms of being the true underdog.
A few things we've learned this week from Coach Saban as well as the defensive and offensive press conferences. One, Jalen Armour-Davis, the defensive back, looks to be practicing, looks good according to defensive coordinator Pete Golding. That is a huge deal considering Josh Job's injury, which we learned about last month.
Well, I think so. Again, you need experience at the corner spots. Jalen Armour-Davis has been out a little bit. Obviously, he's been banged up the latter part of the season. You like his experience. He's had a great year. So hopefully he can come back now. If he can't, then obviously Kool-Aid McKinstry got the start. in the SEC championship game. Kyrie Jackson is a junior college transfer that's really impressed in practices, has played some. I think he would have an opportunity perhaps to get the start at the other corner. Again, if Jalen Armour-Davis couldn't go.
Last week, it was revealed that offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien and offensive line coach Doug Marrone tested positive for COVID-19. Both went into quarantine, both separated from the team. Neither has reached Dallas yet, but Coach Saban, when the team arrived on Sunday, said he expected the duo, the offensive coordinator and the offensive line coach, to be with the team either tomorrow, Thursday, but really before Friday's game. And that is a huge thing because you know the distraction, you know what everyone would be looking at. Everybody's in a routine, and the routine, part of that routine is having those coaches. Yeah,
and they've been able to participate virtually, as you know, so they've been involved. And Alabama's gone through this before last year with Coach Saban, missing the week of the Georgia game. You remember that, a couple of practices before being cleared. And then also missing the Auburn game, which Steve Sarkisian coached that game last year. So they've got some experience. They've had a plan in place for this type of thing if it did occur. My understanding, Stu, is, and you may have confirmation on this, but my understanding is that both Marrone and O'Brien were back today, which is equivalent to a Wednesday practice in a normal week. So that's my understanding, is both were back today.
And before they came back, it was back to Coach Pendry. There's no, you always go right back to the guy that you trust. There's no more trusted coach as far as Nick Saban is concerned than Coach Pendry. So really good guy to have.
And he's been here since the start.
Yeah.
And he's been certainly a guy that I know Coach Saban has leaned on many times. You know, he certainly has a tremendous amount of input with the offensive line and those types of things. Offense as a whole, he's been the offensive coordinator here in the past. So it's really valuable to have someone with his knowledge.
We're going to get into more of the Cincinnati side in just a little bit. But right now, it's time for Coach Talk. Alabama is used to this stage and in the playoff for the 7th time out of the last 8, out of 8 total, in fact. But Nick Saban says it's still a huge opportunity, and this is the one that counts right now.
Yeah, this is when you're in the playoffs, it's all about what's happening now. It's what's in front of you right now. This is one of those, you know, you either win or go home, you know, type situations. And I think players need to understand that. This is a great opportunity for our team. They worked hard all year. I appreciate the effort, the adversity that they overcame, the things that they need to do to get here. But you didn't, you know, come this far to get this far.
And check this out. This was Tuesday. Actually, today's Tuesday. Monday, due to COVID-19 protocols, many of the activities that take place during Bowl Week have changed. But yesterday, this is the Crimson Tide in a virtual visit with patients and families at the Texas Scottish Rite Children's Hospital in Dallas. Video games, you can guess which game they were playing. It was Madden. And the kids, the patients look to have the upper hand. That's not going to be the case on Friday, but you know they are getting really excited for the opportunity to play like Will Anderson Jr. or a Jalen Armour-Davis or something in a Madden game.
Bryce Young.
That's yes, absolutely. Henry To'oTo'o. Still to come on Tider Insider Television, Cincinnati has a running back that Alabama fans might remember. We'll tell you why. And Alabama has a rough stretch in basketball. They've lost 2 of the last 3. What does that mean as we get ready to get into SEC basketball play? Plus, coming up, we're going to take your phone calls, emails, and tweets. You see the information on the screen. Interact with Tider Insider TV right now. Go ahead, give us a call, send us an email, or contact us on social media. We'll be right back with the only show that takes you inside the Crimson Tide. Tider Insider TV returns after the break. Welcome back to TITV, sponsored by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports alongside Rodney Orr. I am Stu McCann. One quick note, John Madden, the Hall of Fame football coach, as well as the commentator, the one who's known for the Madden video game, as well as coaching the Oakland Raiders, has passed away earlier this morning. So we wanted to really pay our respects, talk about such a huge influence on the game, whether it's Alabama football or the Oakland Raiders, like we talked about, anybody in the NFL.
Kenny Snake Stabler.
That's 100, absolutely. That's a good one. But he was 85 years old, so rest in peace. He had a fantastic life. Cincinnati is in the college football playoff for the first time. The school is encouraging fans to wear black. It's a blackout at AT&T Stadium, which is a little bit of a new concept for me. But if it works for them, I actually spoke with Gary Harris earlier today. He said that the team is treating this one like a national championship game. Cincinnati, getting to this game was so big, they wanted to do everything, including the blackout and things of that nature. There is pressure playing against the Power 5 teams. When you're used to playing the group of 5 teams like Cincinnati is, when you get a chance to play against a Power 5, especially the Alabamas, Georgias, and Michigan, they get up for that battle. Cincinnati has been impressive this season. They're the only unbeaten team left in college football. Head coach Luke Fickell, quarterback Desmond Ridder, and former Alabama running back Jerome Ford lead the offense, and that is as good as any offense we're going to see in the SEC. 39 points a game this season.
Yeah, they've been really good. I mean, when you have a quarterback like Desmond Ridder, he's won 44 games. That's a lot of experience, a lot of winning.
Yeah.
So he knows what it takes. He's an outstanding player. He's a guy that can run. He throws the ball really well. He has good weapons, a lot of receivers, good tight ends. And you mentioned Jerome Ford, who actually started the game here in 2019, the season opener against Duke in Atlanta. So he's a tremendous running back, had 187 yards in their conference championship game against Houston. Really quality back, but defensively, wow. I mean, they are impressive defensively. You mentioned their secondary earlier. They have 18 interceptions. They're a team that's really aggressive, and I think this Alabama offensive front's going to have their hands full initially handling some of the pressures that they bring.
What is the key matchup in your mind? Everybody wants to talk about either it's going to be Jerome Ford because he was a former Alabama running back going against that defense, or the Alabama wide receivers and that speed against the 2 cornerbacks, Kobe Bryant and Sauce Gardner.
Well, and again, I think it starts up front.
Yeah.
How does Alabama handle the pressure that Cincinnati brings? They had 8 sacks against Houston. I mean, they totally, that was a close game, but their defensive front took the game over. They blitz a lot from different spots on the field. So I think it's how does Alabama handle the pressure up front offensively? They did it really well against Georgia. We saw that. They made the adjustments. But I think this is going to be a real key because if you can give Bryce Young some time, I think it really, when you're talking about they have outstanding corners, outstanding secondary, no question about that. But the Alabama receivers, if Bryce Young has time, I think he'll have an opportunity to have success. Now, with that said, I think another key, Stu, that we haven't really talked about enough is Brian Robinson.
Yeah.
For the first time in a while, he's going to be healthy. I think this Alabama run game is going to be really important.
I think Malachi Moore honestly could have a big game, and how ironic would it be because he missed all the playoff last year. So we'll see. Alabama basketball has been ranked as high as 5th in the nation this season. You got wins over Gonzaga and Houston, but since then, they've slipped a little, losing 2 of 3 games, including last Tuesday night in Birmingham against Davidson. And because of that, Alabama has fallen to 19th in the AP poll, and they must turn their attention to Tennessee. 19th ranked Alabama hosts 14th ranked Tennessee tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. And here's Coach Oates talking about the start of league play.
So excited to start conference play. You know, obviously, not starting with an easy one. Tennessee's the highest rated team in the SEC according to a lot of the analytics and polls and whatnot. So we've got our work cut out. They're number 2 ranked defensive team in the country according to Ken Pom. They're really good defensively. They play really hard. You know, they just played a great defensive game against Arizona, their last game out. So we've got a tough opener, and I think our guys are ready for it.
After last week's loss to Davidson, head coach Nate Oates talked about the defense being the thing that's really kind of been the reason behind this slide, that if they do what they did against Davidson tomorrow night against Tennessee, it's not going to be as close as a 1-point loss like they had last week.
Yeah, but, you know, again, I think you have new players, obviously. I think it's still very early in the season. I think sometimes people overreact. There's going to be ups and downs, as you know, in a basketball season. And it's going to be interesting to see how the adjustments that Alabama makes defensively, how they improve as you start to head into SEC play, because this is when it really starts.
And people are going to remember wins over Gonzaga and Houston. They will not remember as much they lost to Davidson. Coming up next, former Tide players in action once again. We'll tell you more. We'll expand on that after the break. and your phone calls, emails, and tweets. Be sure to call in right now for that phone number and ask us a question. TITV returns after this. Alabama stars in action once again. This is week 16 of the NFL. Mac Jones, Damian Harris, and the Patriots hosted the Bills. It was a little bit of a tough day for Mac Jones, but Damian Harris more than picked up the slack. 3 touchdowns, 103 yards rushing for Harris, but the Patriots fall to the Bills. And cornerback Trevon Diggs, he's an all-pro for the first time, and no doubt why. He has 11 interceptions on the season, which ties the Cowboys franchise record as Dallas routs Washington on Sunday night, 56-14. He is quite a player, having quite a season. Now we head to the phone lines. Number 1 up, Sammy in Walker County. Hey, Sammy.
Hey, Stu, Rodney, glad to talk to y'all guys, and best wishes for the holidays. Rodney, I had a question about the new signees. I think we might have got a kicker in there. And let me say this about Coach Pendry. He's helping out on the offensive line. They couldn't have a better coach. I think he's the best that's ever been down there myself. And I'm sure they'll get great help from him. But that field goal kicker, elaborate on him a little bit, Rodney. Thanks, guys.
Well, Sammy, to be honest with you, he's going to be a preferred walk-on, so he's not really a signee in terms of part of the class in that regard. But yeah, I know that he's an outstanding player, and fortunately, you still have Will Reichert here for a couple of years.
Yes.
So maybe a while before, but again, you always want to have outstanding kickers in the event they're needed.
That's right, and he did have offers from other places, but just for Alabama to be at this level, he was a preferred walk-on, but the benefit far outweighs the risk, I guess, in that matter, if you want to play for championships. That is the motto here at Alabama.
And you know what? You never know when a guy can earn a scholarship. There's been a lot of kickers that have come in, walked on as preferred walk-ons or whatever it might be, and then end up on scholarship.
That's right. So do we have time for an email? We're going to do an email. How many running backs does Alabama look to have in this signing class? This is from Jamie in Haleyville. How many running backs in this signing class? I know they've signed 2, and now they have 1 out of the transfer portal.
Well, I think, look, they've got 3 outstanding guys coming in. When you talk about Emmanuel Henderson, he's really an athletic guy, a guy that could play a lot of different positions, was a fantastic high school running back. Jamarian Miller out of the state of Texas, who was originally committed to Texas, flipped to Alabama back earlier in December. He's been an outstanding player throughout his high school career, highly recruited player. He signed as well. But Jahmyr Gibbs, the transfer from Georgia Tech, he's one of the elite running backs in college football. We talked about him last week on the show, his ability to return kicks as a receiver. He's caught 59 passes in his 2 seasons at Georgia Tech, in addition to all of his success running the ball.
He's a special guy who can help on a lot of different spots. That's right. More TITV after the break. Welcome back to TITV, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. I'm Stu McCann, sitting beside Rodney Orr. We head right to the phone lines. Caleb in Hubbardville, you're up.
Yeah. Hello, Rodney, Stu. I hope you guys had a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. You too.
And my question is, will JoJo Earl and Chris Allen be available Friday? And how's it looking with the receiver that's transferring from UTEP in North Carolina? Thank you, guys. Happy New Year.
Thanks, Caleb. All right, so Chris Allen and JoJo Earl, any update that you've heard?
Well, I don't know what Chris Allen's status is. Of course, he had a significant injury, obviously. He's missed the entire year, but I know he's been out there. He's been doing some things. Is it enough to participate in this game? I don't know. We'll see. Media's closed out there, so who knows. But JoJo Earl, he looks like he's moving really well. We've seen some of the practice video of him, and so hopefully he is, because I think he could, add something in terms of when you lose John Mechie, you're going to need a number of guys to step up.
I think a lot of people are anxious for 2:30 just to see who's going to be out there on the field. Coming up next, it is prediction time. We do have one special prediction, Gary Harris. But that is coming up after this. Take a look at the Tuscaloosa skyline. Beautiful night. Predictions are coming up next. Welcome back to TITV. It's game week, the college football semifinal. Alabama and Cincinnati kicks off Friday at 2:30. It's prediction time. Rodney, go first.
Well, you know, like I said, Stu, I kind of touched on this a little earlier. This Cincinnati defense, with the pressure they bring, I think that's going to be a real key early. It'd be interesting to see the adjustments that Alabama makes handling the pressure that Cincinnati is going to bring. And I think I really think Cincinnati is going to play extremely well. I think it's going to be a much closer game than some people are predicting. I picked it 33-24, Stu.
33-24. Yeah. All right. Well, Gary Harris usually is sitting in this seat. He cannot this week. We wish him a speedy recovery. He's dealing with a bout of COVID. But he did have a prediction. He wanted to share that with you. He sent that to us, and this is Gary's prediction for Friday's game.
Well, thank you, guys. Anybody that knows me knows I always like to give the opponent respect. Sometimes I think I'm a little bit like a coach in that regard. I never take a team for granted when I'm making predictions, certainly not in this situation. You're talking about a Cincinnati team that's in the college football playoff semifinal, undefeated, only lost one game last year, 34 seniors. A lot of guys on this roster are 21, 22, 23 years old. They've been around the block. They've built to this point. Offensively, Desmond Ridder is a terrific dual-threat quarterback. Jerome Ford, the running back, does not want to be called an Alabama transfer, but he is. And he's terrific. Defensively, 6 or 7 guys on that defense are going to be drafted. 2 of the top cornerbacks, probably the top 2 cornerbacks in the country. So they're going to challenge that Alabama wide receiving core. This is going to be a tough game, but Alabama right now, I think, is the best team in the country. The Crimson Tide has been here and done that many times. For Cincinnati, this is all brand new. I like Alabama to pull away in the fourth quarter and win it 38-20. So my prediction again, Alabama 38, Cincinnati 20 in the CFP College Football Semifinal at the Cotton Bowl.
All righty, that's a good prediction. Both of you think it's going to be Alabama. Thank you for tuning in to Tider Insider, brought to you by Tuscaloosa Tourism and Sports. Don't forget, if you missed any of tonight's show, you can catch the replay tonight at 10:30 after the news at 10 and online, WVUA23.com. Let's check it out. This is the practice. More coming up tonight at 10 o'clock with Matt Travis.